Today we'll be looking at word problems in regards to equations with variables on both sides. So before we do that, let's go ahead and review some of the keywords. You guys have a table with keywords down here. So for the operation addition, you might see some keywords like more than or increased. For subtraction, decreased or less than. Now less than is a little bit tricky. You have to flip the order in which they give you the numbers or the variable. For example, if they give you 8 less than x, it is not 8 minus x. It's actually x minus 8. You have to flip it. It's 8 less than the x. So this one might be a little tricky, so keep that one in mind. For multiplication, you might see multiply, product, of, times, twice, which means times 2, or per. For division, you might see divide or quotient. For the equal sign, you're going to see same. You're going to see this keyword in a lot of your word problem questions. It'll say the word same. That will cue you in to know that you have to write an equation with variables on both sides. And whenever they say a number, they don't specify the number, so that's your variable. That's x. So let's do a couple of examples here first. 6 times a number plus 4 is the same as the number minus 11. So on this one, we can go ahead and just look at the order. 6 times a number. A number, that's just your variable, your x. And when we want to show that a number is being multiplied by the variable, we just write them next to each other. 6x plus 4 is the same. Remember that that means your equal sign. That number, remember, that number is your variable, minus 11. So that is your equation. Let's look at this one now. 4 times a number minus 5. So again, when we want to know, when we want to show that a number is being multiplied by a variable, we just write them together. 4 times a number minus 5 is the same as twice the number. Remember that when it is twice, it is being multiplied by 2. So twice that number plus 3. Okay, let's look at this one. The quotient. Quotient means to divide. So you're dividing 10 and a number. Remember that division, we show it like a fraction. The fraction bar means to divide. Is the same as the product of 6 and a number. Product means to multiply. So you're multiplying 6 and the number. And our last one, 10 less than. Remember that less than is your tricky one. So 10 less than 3 times the number is the same as that number plus 4. Okay, now let's go ahead and see what it looks like with a word problem. There's a couple of steps that you're going to want to do with variables on both sides. It means that you are comparing two things. So we're going to have to make a table with 2 columns to organize that information, to organize the two things that we're comparing. You need to figure out which number repeats, so the number that has per, each, every, and etc. Other words that might mean repeating. This is the number that goes with the variable because this is being multiplied. Remember, these words mean to multiply, so they go next to the variable. And then you identify which number happens once, so your initial fee, your one time, your flat fee. This is the number that goes by itself. So this is what your equation with variables on both sides will look like. The number that's being multiplied by the variable, right? Remember, we always highlight the variable terms, and then numbers that are by themselves. And then depending on the situation, those are either going to be positive or negative. So let's go ahead and look at an example. On Monday, Elaine ran 5 miles and 3 laps around a trail. On Tuesday, she ran 6 miles and 2 laps around a trail. She ran the same distance on both days. So same, remember, that's your keyword for the equal sign. How many miles long is 1 lap around the trail? So I am comparing two things. I am comparing Monday and I'm comparing Tuesday. And I know that both of them are on the same day. On Monday, you ran 5 miles and 3 laps. So what is it that we're repeating? We're repeating the laps. So the number that you're repeating, that's what goes with the x. So it is 3x plus 5. And then for Tuesday, she ran 6 miles and 2 laps. Again, we're repeating the laps. So it's 6 plus the 2x. Once you have written your equation, you are good to solve it. So remember, you draw down the line and you highlight both terms. You see that the 2x is the smallest, so you go ahead and do the opposite. Three minus 2 is 1x. Plus 5 equals 6. We still highlight the variable term so that we know that we need to eliminate that plus 5, and we do that by subtracting on both sides. So my x will equal 1. Each lap is 1 mile long. Okay, so let's do a couple of example problems. Let's go ahead and look at number 1. Container A and container B have leaks. Container A has 800 milliliters of water and is leaking at 6 milliliters per minute. Container B has 1,000 milliliters and is leaking at 10 milliliters per minute. How many minutes, M, will it take for the two containers to have the same amount? So I'm comparing two things. I'm comparing container A and container B. And I know that it's an equation because it's asking me about the same. So now let's look at our keywords. Container A starts with 800 milliliters, but it's leaking at 6 per minute. That per lets me know that the 6 repeats. So that gets written next to the X because it repeats. The number that happens once is the 800 because you start off with that number. And since it's leaking, it means that you're losing liquid, so it'll be subtracting. Container B has 1,000 milliliters. That's what you're starting off with. So it happens once. And it's leaking at 10 milliliters per minute. So since it's per minute, it repeats. So the 10 gets the X. And since it's leaking, we know that it's subtraction. And then you would solve your equation. Highlight your variable terms. Between -6 and -10, -10 is the smallest because it is farthest on the left on the number line. So the farthest on the left on the number line, the lesser the value. So let's go ahead and do the opposite. Now I have 800. -6 plus 10 is 4x. Okay. Now we still highlight the variable term so that I know I need to get rid of the 800. It is positive, so I'm going to subtract it to get rid of it. 4x will equal 200. And now my last step is to divide. So x will equal 50. It'll take it 50 minutes for both containers to have the same amount. Okay, and now let's do our last example here. Tim is choosing between two cell phone plans that offer the same amount of free minutes. Singular's plan charges $39.99 per month with an additional minutes costing 45 cents. Verizon's plans cost $44.99 with additional minutes at 40 cents. How many additional minutes, A, will it take for the two plans to cost the same? So again, I see the word Same over here. So I know that I'm going to have an equation. I'm comparing Singular and Verizon. So let's go ahead and label our two columns. Now we want to know for 1 month. So the 1 month happens once. So the $39.99 happens once. And the minutes is what repeats. So that gets put with the X. Now for Verizon, the $44.99 happens 1 time a month. And additional minutes, those are what repeats, gets the variable. Now same method. Go ahead and highlight your variables and look at the smallest one. It's the 0.40. So we will go ahead and do the opposite of that. Subtract it. So that gets canceled out. 0.45 minus 0.40 is 0.05. Don't forget that there's a 0 there. And bring this down. We will still highlight this. Remember that it was a plus, sorry. Now I know I need to get rid of the $39.99. And now we will get $5. And our very last step is to divide. So X will equal 100. So after 100 extra minutes, both plans will cost the same. So remember to organize your information in 2 tables. See which number repeats, that one gets placed with the X, and which number happens once, and then you solve like you would any regular equation. Thank you.